Suppose that the world demand for wheat increases sharply. We know that an increase in demand will cause the equilibrium price and quantity to increase, but by how much? Since demand has increased, we are moving along the supply curve. So how much equilibrium price and quantity changes will depend largely on the supply curve. Specifically, we want to know the price elasticity of supply. The price elasticity of supply measures how responsive are producers to a price change. When a price changes, by how much will producers change the quantity they supply? When a relatively small change in price brings about a relatively large change in quantity supplied, we say that the price elasticity of supply is elastic. That is, suppliers are relatively responsive to a price change. The elasticity of supply coefficient is greater than 1. When a relatively large change in price does not elicit much of a change in quantity supplied from suppliers, price elasticity of supply is relatively inelastic. Here, suppliers are not very responsive to a price change. The elasticity coefficient will be less than 1. When the relative change in price and relative change in quantity supplied are the same, the price elasticity of supply is unit elastic, and the coefficient is 1. When the coefficient is equal to 0, the price elasticity of supply is perfectly inelastic. An example of this would be the number of seats in an auditorium in the short run. Suppose there are 500 seats in the auditorium. As demand for seats increases and the price increases, the number of seats supplied will still be just 500. Price changes, but quantity supplied does not. Suppliers are not able to respond to the higher price at all in the short run. Here is what perfectly elastic supply looks like. Here, suppliers are infinitely responsive to a price change. In this example, at the price of $4, suppliers will produce whatever quantity demanded is at that price. If the price drops 1 penny below $4, quantity supplied will drop to 0. For agricultural commodities like wheat, the elasticity of supply in the short run is relatively inelastic. The short run is between planting seasons. If farmers have already made their decisions of how much wheat to plant and the price of wheat increases, then they cannot respond much. They have planted what they have planted. They may be able to better fertilize the crops and take other steps to make sure wheat yield is high, but they cannot plant more because planting season has passed. So in the short run, relatively small changes in demand can bring about relatively large changes in price, but relatively small changes in quantity. In the long run, farmers can respond to the higher price and plant more wheat. As long as planting wheat is more profitable than planting other crops, more and more farmers will want to plant wheat. This makes the supply of wheat in the long run really elastic, maybe even perfectly elastic. In this graph, in the long run, price remains at $4 and the increase in quantity supplied is large. For most goods, more time means more elastic. For this reason, the increase in price from an increase in demand will be largest in the short run. In the long run, as shown here, there may not be any increase in price at all. For durable goods that can be recycled, like aluminum, more time means less elastic. Or in other words, the largest supply response will be in the short run. Suppose that the price of aluminum increases. In the short run, people with stockpiles of aluminum will respond to the higher price by supplying the aluminum on the market by recycling it. In this picture, a farmer has a pile of old aluminum irrigation pipe. When the price of aluminum increases, the farmer will have an incentive to take the aluminum to be recycled. In times with higher aluminum prices, farmers often get their pipes stolen by thieves that make money by recycling the pipe. It ends up on the market one way or another. With time, though, the stock of aluminum available to be recycled dwindles. The biggest response in supply is immediately after the price increases. Let's go ahead and work a problem. Suppose that the price of halibut increases 5%. The quantity supplied of halibut increases 2%. What is the price elasticity of supply? Plugging the values given in the problem into the equation for the price elasticity of supply, we get 0.4. The correct answer here is D. Is the coefficient elastic or inelastic? Inelastic. The coefficient is less than 1. For which is the price elasticity of supply most likely to be elastic in the short run? The correct answer is copper. When the price of copper increases, in the short run, this will prompt people to recycle copper, which will thus be supplied on the market. For instance, If the price of copper increases, and an electrician with a bunch of leftover wire scraps may be motivated to finally pull the scrap wire out of the rubber insulation and take it in to be recycled. However, after all the available scrap copper has been recycled, the response will drop off in the long run. Let's work another problem. The demand for corn increases. As a result, the price will blank, and the less elastic the supply of corn, the blank will be the effect on the price. The answer here is B. When the demand for corn increases, the price of corn will rise, and the less elastic the supply of corn, the greater will be the price increase. The graph here illustrates this. The short-run supply for corn is less elastic than the long-run supply. When demand increases, in the short run the price increases to $14. In the long run, since here I have drawn the long-run supply curve to be perfectly elastic, there is no price increase at all. In the chapter on perfect competition, we will talk more about how when the short-run price increases to $14, this high price induces farmers to start planting corn in the long run, which drives the price back down to $10. It is this entry and exit of farmers into planting corn that causes the supply to be so elastic in the long run.